On the distant edge of a faraway star system, the planet Zorath 5 drifted in the void, its dim cold starlight casting an eerie silence across the vast, lifeless expanse. The light was weak, barely enough to illuminate the emptiness that surrounded the planet, as if the very cosmos itself held its breath in quiet stillness. The entire planet was a desolate wasteland, devoid of any sign of life, save for the endless dark fields that stretched beneath a thick, oppressive sky. Shrouded with clouds that seemed to be part of the very mystery the planet concealed, nothing existed here but the cold, endless winds sweeping through the barren valleys, carrying the breath of solitude. Inside a dimly lit spacecraft, Ekes, a warrior from the Egots species, gazed down at Earth through the wide window. His form was imposing, clad in tough, scaly armor that shimmered in hues of red and gold, reflecting the faint light of distant stars. He stood tall, exuding an air of power and arrogance, his posture one of pride and self-assurance. The longer he looked, the more he felt a surge of superiority, prideful not only of himself, but of his entire race. Sent to scout Earth, his mission was simple, yet of great importance: to assess humanity's potential before the great invasion of the Egots began. He believed humans to be weak, primitive creatures, lacking the technological prowess to be considered a serious threat, let alone able to resist the mighty Egots. In his mind, they were nothing more than feeble, foolish beings, unworthy of any consideration, much less of the honor of a fight. They were like the countless creatures he'd wiped out with ease in previous conquests. These weaklings, Ekes thought, a smug smile spreading across his face. How could they possibly defeat us? They hide in the shadows, with nothing but primitive weapons. They have no real power, no technology. They don't deserve respect. But then, something shifted. A subtle jolt in the spacecraft startled Ekes. A faint signal from Earth, a slight fluctuation in the energy readings, drew his attention to the oddity. There was something happening, something strange, an inexplicable feeling rising within him. Yet, he dismissed it. He had conquered so many weak species before, and he didn't believe humans would be any different. He smiled again, reassuring himself that this would be another easy victory. Yet, the stars in the cold expanse of space continued to shine, carrying with them mysteries yet to be unraveled. And Ekes, in his arrogance, had yet to realize that he was entering a world far more complex and unknowable than he could ever imagine. Ekes' spacecraft descended smoothly onto the soft Earth, its tire tracks deeply imprinted into the ground. The scenery around him was in stark contrast to the barren, cold world of Zorath 5. Gone was the endless, suffocating silence he was accustomed to. Instead, there was life in abundance. Vast green fields stretching under a clear sky, bathed in the golden sunlight that seemed to seep into every corner of the space. Ekes stepped off the ship, his eyes fixated on the strange creatures before him. Humans, fragile beings with delicate bodies, the complete opposite of the might of the Egots. Ekes' exploration team quickly began their survey, and the first objects they encountered were the weapons humans used. Ekes picked up an AK-47, a firearm the humans called an assault rifle. He sneered as he looked at it, feeling no sense of concern. To him, it was nothing more than a bizarre toy, a fragment of metal that humans used for self-defense. His overwhelming sense of superiority made him look down on it even more. These humans, is this really all they have? Ekes challenged, his eyes gleaming with contempt. He stared at the rifle, unable to believe that humans actually used such a crude weapon. The AK-47, with its outdated appearance and simplistic design, seemed incapable of anything more than firing recklessly. While he was used to high-tech weapons that could destroy entire planets in an instant, this gun, to him, was nothing more than an old relic, utterly unremarkable. Ekes shook his head as though he had already explained away humanity's weakness. They can't create anything more powerful than this, he told himself, growing more convinced that Earth was an easy world to conquer. Weak creatures with their ancient guns could never pose a threat to a great race like the Egots. These thoughts reassured him, but he failed to realize that he was standing on the edge of a grave mistake. He continued to play with the AK-47 like it was a game, turning it over in his hands to test its mechanism. His fingertips traced the metal details, feeling the coldness of the material that humans use to craft their weapons. The crude curves of the rifle and the dents on its stocks only deepened Ekes' scorn. Does anyone truly consider this a dangerous weapon? He wondered to himself, unaware that his dismissive thoughts were the very thing blinding him to the true power of humanity. From another perspective, however, the weapon carried a strange simplicity, one that the Egots in their technological arrogance could never understand. True strength lay in the humans themselves, in their resilience and determination, not in the technology or sophistication of their weapons. And at this moment, Ekes had yet to realize that the truth about humanity would force him to reconsider everything he believed. The war erupted in the vast expanse of Earth's skies. Ekes could feel the tension in the air, as if an invisible force was pressing down on the space around him. The sounds of chaos tore through the atmosphere. Gunfire, bullets whizzing through the air, the screams and growls of alien creatures. Every step Ekes took on the hard, stone-like ground seemed unyielding, as if retreat was no longer an option. From a vantage point atop a hill, he observed the fierce battle unfolding beneath him. Under the dimming sunlight, the scene appeared like a nightmare from which there was no waking. Ekes, once filled with unshakable confidence, began to feel a creeping sense of unease take over his mind. The Egots army, equipped with superior technology and advanced weapons capable of destroying any opponent in seconds, was now facing something far different. Before him, humans fought as though they had nothing left to lose. The AK-47s, which he had dismissed as crude toys, were firing with deadly accuracy. Despite the lack of grandeur, the weapons carried an unimaginable power in the hands of human warriors. Ekes stared at the human soldiers. They were not the frightened, war-weary creatures he had imagined. Surrounded, The humans showed no sign of fear. They didn't run, didn't retreat from their opponents. Instead, they held onto their weapons and fueled their determination with every move. These human warriors did not underestimate their enemies, not even an imposing army of Egots. They fought not only for their own survival, but for something much greater, a higher cause, for their homeland, for freedom, for their very existence. A bullet struck an Egots warrior, sending him crashing to the ground. His blood mingled with the dirt, seeping into the cold earth, a reminder to all invaders that humanity was not an easy target to annihilate. Ekes felt a surge of anger, but also doubt. How could these crude guns cause such devastating losses? He stood silently, his hand gripping his weapon, his eyes following the relentless human onslaught. A squad of Egot soldiers rushed forward, trying to break through the bulletproof barriers, only to be gunned down as soon as they entered human range. The earth cracked under the weight of their advance, each step leaving deep fissures in the ground. The ground trembled from the impact of explosions, yet the humans remained unfazed. They're not as simple as I thought, Ekes muttered to himself, his initial arrogance gradually fading, replaced by a growing sense of worry. These humans possessed an unpredictable strength, an unbreakable resolve. Despite all the differences in power, technology, and weaponry, humanity fought as if they had lost everything and had only one thing left to protect: the very essence of their survival. Ekes couldn't understand how humans could be so resilient. Could their weapons, these AK-47s, really make Egots fear them? He couldn't fathom that such simplicity could hide such strength. As the battle raged on and more Egots fell, Ekes realized he had misjudged humanity. This wasn't just a battle, it was a fight for survival, where the spirit and determination of humankind were the true deciding factors. As the battle escalated, chaos engulfed the land, dust and smoke filling the air, obscuring the view. Ekes stood there, rifle in hand, his eyes locked onto the relentless fall of Egots warriors, shot after shot. The stillness that had once surrounded him was shattered, replaced by an uneasy feeling, as though something was shifting in the space around him. Everything moved so quickly. Each bullet fired, striking alien bodies, leaving behind dark bloodstains that blended into the rain-soaked sky. Ekes, once a proud warrior, had always believed humans to be weak creatures, easily crushed under the superior strength and technology of the Egots. But as he watched the human soldiers, armed with nothing but simple weapons in their hands, Ekes began to sense something far stronger than he had anticipated. The resilience, the unyielding spirit, and the courage that could not be extinguished blazed within these humans like a sacred fire, impossible to put out. These human warriors didn't fight just for themselves. They were not afraid, not backing down, even when the price could be their very lives. Each one of them fought for an ideal, for family, for their homeland, for survival. They fought for what they held dear, and each bullet fired was not just a defense, but a declaration of war against the invaders. An Egot soldier standing next to Ekes was shot, his face filled with panic. The bullet shattered through his alien scales, tearing his body apart. In that moment, Ekes felt a shift within himself. A confusion he had never known before. It wasn't that the humans were fighting. It was how they fought. Humans had nothing but an unbreakable fighting spirit. There was no fear, no hesitation, only warriors charging forward despite their disadvantage. Ekes looked at these humans. No advanced weaponry like the Egots possessed. No flashy space battles with futuristic ships. Only endurance, determination, and an unwavering belief in the sanctity of life, even as everything around them crumbled. He couldn't understand how these fragile creatures could fight with such tenacity. A gunshot rang out nearby, snapping Ekes out of his thoughts. He saw a group of humans, their eyes filled with conviction and resilience, continuing to fight despite the tremendous losses they had endured. Ekes felt an unfamiliar sense of worry rising in his chest. He was not just facing a battle of weapons, but a battle of spirits. What are we up against? He wondered, sensing a vulnerability he had never encountered throughout this entire invasion. Humanity was not as simple as he had imagined. Their strength didn't come from equipment, technology, or powerful weapons. It came from determination and an indomitable fighting spirit. He looked at these warriors, humans who did not retreat in the face of danger. And in that moment, he felt helpless, as though everything he thought he knew about war and strength had been upended. Though Ekes couldn't fully comprehend the difference, one thing had become clear in his mind. He could not defeat humanity simply with the power of weapons. The battle had reached its peak. Ekes stood at the top of a hill, gazing down at the chaos erupting below. The sound of continuous gunfire shattered the air, red streaks of light flashing around like bloodstains on the earth. The Egots warriors, equipped with advanced weapons and superior technology, were unable to withstand the relentless fury of humanity. The AK-47, a simple weapon, yet deadly effective, fired round after round, striking the alien soldiers with precise, rapid attacks. The screams echoed as Egots fell to the ground, their bodies torn apart, black blood seeping into the dust. The stunned, horrified expressions on the alien warriors' faces revealed the painful truth. Superiority in strength and technology didn't always guarantee victory. Despite their cutting-edge weapons, capable of annihilating entire planets, they were powerless against the human spirit and the unwavering resolve of humanity. Ekes felt a rising sense of disappointment within himself. His initial arrogance, his self-assuredness began to crumble as he watched his Egots warriors fall in panic. The humans weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for something deeper: the belief in life, in family, in their friends. The AK-47s, which had once seemed like crude toys in their hands, had transformed into instruments of destruction in the decisive moment, forcing the Egots warriors to retreat in desperation. Ekes witnessed a sight he had never imagined. Humans never gave up. Despite their heavy losses, they continued to fight, with a fire in their eyes that could not be extinguished. Facing death, humanity kept firing, kept fighting, as if everything around them had been forgotten. We cannot defeat these creatures, Ekes thought to himself, feeling as if the world around him was collapsing. His previous strategic decisions now seemed ineffective. Egots' warriors kept falling, and the losses mounted. The gunfire continued without pause, and Ekes could do nothing but watch his warriors fall one by one. At this moment, he faced an overwhelming decision, one that would determine his fate. Should he continue the invasion or accept defeat and retreat? Ekes stood amidst the chaos, no clear path ahead. If he pressed on, the entire Egots' army could be wiped out. But retreating would mean the invasion's catastrophic failure. With each passing second, Ekes' mind grew more chaotic. The feeling of losing control, of failure, trapped him in his own indecision. His initial arrogance had completely shattered. Now, he was forced to confront a harsh truth. Humanity couldn't be defeated by technological strength alone. It was their resilience and indomitable spirit that had led the Egots to this moment of crisis. The battle had ended, but the silence that enveloped the space didn't bring a sense of peace. The Egots' army retreated in panic, their massive spacecraft ascending into the sky, leaving behind scorched fields and the lifeless bodies of alien warriors scattered across the ground. Amid the smoke and dust, Ekes stood on the deck of the spaceship, his cold eyes gazing down at Earth, where life still thrived. The sounds of gunfire and the growls of war had faded. But in the vast and silent expanse, a haunting question continued to swirl in his mind. This war, did it truly bring peace? Ekes wondered, his eyes fixed on the human warriors standing firm on the wounded Earth, refusing to back down. Below him, Earth blurred in the weak light of distant stars. But humanity, with its tireless warriors, remained something beyond Ekes' understanding. The AK-47s, which he had once dismissed as crude weapons, now demonstrated humanity's strange strength, not through complexity or advanced technology, but through their indomitable spirit, determination, and relentless will to fight. In that moment, Ekes felt something he had never fully understood. The true power of humanity did not lie in their weapons, but in their ability to hold on, to never give up, no matter the failures or the price to be paid. He couldn't stop thinking about it, and within Ekes, a strange feeling washed over him. Anxiety. Humanity could fight like this, but would they be able to maintain the strength when faced with greater challenges in the future? The invaders, like the Egots, had been defeated, but could humanity sustain this spirit when faced with new wars, with even more powerful enemies lurking in the darkness of the endless cosmos? Ekes looked down, his hand gripping the edge of the ship, the anxiety within him impossible to explain. Perhaps humanity would find a new way to fight, a new strength to battle forces even greater than what he could imagine. But would that spirit endure forever? Or was it simply a small flame, easily extinguished by the winds of future conflicts? The question hung in the air, just as the darkness surrounded Earth, where Ekes saw life continuing unabated, a life resilient and unyielding. Could humanity maintain this mental strength when confronted with trials never before seen, when their existence and evolution still remained an unsolved mystery. Step by step, he turned his back on Earth. But the question echoed endlessly in Ekes' mind. Humanity's existence, with its warriors who feared nothing, was far from over. And Ekes knew that this battle was only the beginning. Humanity's story still awaited the next steps in a vast universe, where they would continue to fight, not just for themselves, but for an ideal never before seen.